Chris Sizelove, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks a lot, man. This has been fun. It's been great to meet you here, and thanks for letting me, more than likely waste your time for 70 minutes or so. But yeah, thank you, man.
Now, somehow I feel like that's going to be really wrong, and I'm excited to have you in that seat because, in the course of the last, it feels like it just started, but we've been going pretty hard here for, the last 24, 36 hours or so with everything. We're down here in
Riceboro.
Riceboro, Georgia. So it's just south of Savannah a little bit.
Yep.
We're out here with Greenline Tactical. So Don Edwards and his sidekick Sam Houston, and then a whole other cast of characters that are here too. He's got John here. He's got Eric Butler here. We had John on the show earlier today.
Oh, great!
All the Blue Force gear folks are here, and you're here representing that. You got Donnie and Christina, and gosh, there's a whole bunch. There's a whole cast there.
Yeah, we brought me plus 3 out here, so 4 of us total came out here to participate in this class.
So we've been flying around in helicopters and shooting at stuff. It's been pretty fun.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? It's your first time?
My first time in a helicopter, first time shooting a gun from a helicopter, obviously, and a lot of firsts for me. Like tonight we were up under nods, and I don't have a lot of experience doing that either. So it was a really good time. But I think the more important part is I come for the people. Like that experience is like a huge bonus, obviously, and I'll probably never ever get a chance unless I came back here. I don't know where you could go to get that experience, but just the standing in line. There's a lot of hurry up and wait, as you're waiting to get on aircrafts and going through safety briefs and all that kind of stuff. And I've had an opportunity to kind of listen to you talk. You've given me a lot of insight to a lot of things, whether you knew it or not at the time.
Right on.
And so I'm excited to maybe pull some more stuff out of you because I find you to be a really interesting dude.
Yeah, man. Let's rack them up.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So where I start with this is I just say, hey, you get to start and finish wherever you want. You can go back to wherever you want to start. And you just have to be patient with me because I might time you out a few times to ask a few questions and maybe go down a rabbit hole or two, and then I'll bring us back.
Right on, man. I hope you're a better conversationalist than I am, so this will work.
I love that you warned me about that. This is going to be fun. We're gonna have a good time. So, who is Chris Sizelove?
A military brat. My dad's retired Air Force and moved all around the world. Wound up in Prescott, Arizona. That's where he retired to. I guess it's like early 90s, mid 90s. And I was that quintessential kid that grew up reading Soldier Fortune magazine, and all the gun magazines, just like a gun freak as a kid, which is probably not super healthy, but it worked out in my case. So cool. And cool thing about Prescott, it's very close to Paulden, Arizona. And Paulden, Arizona is where Gunsight Training Academy is.
Right.
So it's like one of the OG, facilities. And so I was fortunate enough as a teenager to work out there, and I got exposed to this world at the time. And back in the 90s, it was tiny. There was no, all the stuff you see today in the industry, there was 3% of that going on, So I thought I wanted to be a gunsmith, and I was kind of apprenticing in the gunsmithy shop. And back in the 90s, most of the stuff that was on the market was just garbage, as far as duty grade stuff. So when classes were going on out there, contract classes for government agencies or big civilian classes, to the extent they were doing them, everything broke. So a part of my job as the apprentice was to sit on the range in a quad, wait for guns to break, run them back, try to get them up and running, bring them back out. So it was because of that I was watching these instructors, got to bullshit with them a little bit, and it hit me pretty hard as a kid, 16, 17 years old. The instructors would eat lunch every day together. They had different classes going on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'd be in the corner, eat my sandwich or whatever, listening to these guys talk. They're gunfighters, validated. And these 60s, 70s Vietnam guys, 80s. I mean, there was some real deal guys. And listening to them talk was man, this is not Hollywood. This is real. These dudes, they've done it. I thought that was kind of neat. And then I learned that I would never make a good gunsmith. I just don't have the.
What was the thing? What was the turning point?
Yeah, I just don't have the like attention to detail that it really required. And I'm not a tinkerer, like just genetically. In fact, still to this day, I don't tinker with guns. I shoot them till they break. I send them back to people.
They fix them for you.
Yeah, like I'm very glad that there's really
people that dig
now,
that.
Yeah, people that dig that because I'm not one of them. So, they were all like, "Yeah, bro, you need to join the Army." So that's what I did. Joined the Army in '99. Got a Ranger contract. Went to Ranger Battalion. Stayed there in some capacity in the unit till 2016.
Okay.
And then went to another agency for a short period of time, and then retired. And retired back to Savannah. Blue Force Gear's headquartered in Savannah, and they asked me to come on board. Not really sure at the time, like what capacity, because I have no college. I joined the Army, never did any of that stuff. Not qualified to like do anything that it takes like real skills to do, except for this. It's like the only thing I have to offer the world is
interesting guns
and manipulations and things like that, education on those topics. And so it kind of, the way the dust settled was, if you spend like taxpayer dollars on our product, then you'll have the opportunity to work with me on like, does it work well, or fitment, sizing, application stuff. So in that capacity, man, I get to see a lot of people. I still get to teach and talk about the things I know about and passionate about. So it's been fantastic.
So we moved all the way to Blue Force Gear. Let's go back to the Army real quick. So, or for a bit maybe. So you just knew that's what you were going to do?
Yeah, 100%. I tried to enlist. When you join the Army, you go to like a MEPS station. That's like I think it's military initial something or other. That's where they give you the physical and you sign the paperwork and shit. And sitting there was, they're like, what do you want to enlist for? It's like 20 years. Like I'm gonna do my career. Like this is what I want to do. And they're like, you can't do that. Like it's like 3, 4, or 6. So I ended up doing 3 because my dad, retired military guy, he's like, just do 3 because if you like it, you'll get to re-enlist like earlier and you might get some money, so that kind of worked out in my favor. So yeah, I did 3 initial enlistment and just kept going after that every time I got the chance. I'm kind of a weirdo, I guess, like loved the job, loved everything about it, never even entertained getting out, or anything like that. Yeah, real interesting time to be in the military,
Well, let's talk about, so when did you get in? What year are we talking when you...
1999.
Okay, so it's pre 9/11.
Yep.
Right. So did you know you were going Rangers?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was the plan.
That was the plan. And at the time, the Army, and the reason all these like old, guys that were instructors at a gun site, and they had all retired from various, branches of service and stuff. But they all said like, you need to join the Army. You need to go to Ranger Battalion. Because at the time, the Army was the only branch that would give you a shot to do something, kind of unique right off the bat. All the other, great elements out there, the SEALs, the Green Berets, Marine Corps, what they call it back then, the recon guys, all of those other branches, you had to like do something for 4 years and then try out, which is probably a good policy. But the Army was the only one that's like right off the bat, we'll let you take your shot. It's on you to do it, but we'll let you at least take a crack at it.
Right.
So that's why it was a kind of unanimous. Like, you need to join the Army, you need to go to Ranger Battalion. So, and the Army was giving away contracts for it. I managed to get one.
Yeah, that's good.
Managed to show up as a real dipshit kid, and could do the requisite amount of push-ups and mental games and stuff to get through the initial.
Did you prep for this, or did you just showed up?
I just showed up. Yeah. Interesting thing about the Army is like everything's done at scale, right? So if you showed up, you're a fitness guy. If an Olympic athlete showed up to the Army, to go through basic training and stuff, by the time he was done, he'd be the same fitness as everybody else. Like there's no point in like working out. Assuming you're like generally...
You could pass the basics.
Yeah. Because they do everything, at a big scale. So it's individually...
train your way into shape.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, besides just maybe being dumb enough to not quit, throughout all of it. And thankfully it's changed now, but at that time there wasn't a whole lot of maturity that was required to make it through all that stuff. So like I said, I was a pretty idiot kid, but managed to make it there. And then the real learning, the real development happens when you get to your unit, at that level.
That's what everybody tells me.
Yeah.
That's what everybody tells me. It's like, now you've done nothing. Now we're going to teach you how this is really going to get done.
Yeah. And that's, you're not transient when you get there. It's like, no, you're here. You get jumped into the gang, so to speak. And it's like,
this is for real.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
So, all right. So you're getting into 99, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
99. Okay. So you're not in very long before things get pretty wild. Can you talk about that? Like, where are you and what are you doing?
Yeah. So, a commando to me at that time when I joined the Army, and still, up to 9/11, was a guy with his face painted that was like, rolling through the woods like a wraith, and setting up ambushes and doing little raids and stuff like that. If you had some rope tied around you,
there was next level.
Yeah, you made it, and I did. At one point I did have that rope, like, hey, got it. So that was like what we did. We did a lot. And at that time,
training,
of course. Gotcha. Yeah. Because the only thing going on in the world during those days was Kosovo, and there was some interesting things happening in Kosovo. And that was what we were like. We were either training to like go to Latin America and do the narco stuff, or go to Kosovo and do, that kind of stuff. But, coming out of the incident in Somalia, the Joint Chiefs and the leadership of the military at that time was like, you cannot if we unleash a Ranger battalion on a problem set, we know what's going to happen. Like, it's not, so we never did. But every cycle when we'd go on it's called RF1, like that's the whole 9-hour sequence, America's, 911 and all that kind of stuff. Every time we would pick up that cycle, it was like, hey, we could go to Kosovo to do this, all that kind of stuff. And then 9/11 happened, and I was actually in Germany. We were on a training deployment in Germany when that happened, and we were in the field. Like, I actually didn't even realize 9/11 had happened until about 3 days later.
What?
Yeah, because they didn't stop our exercise. They like
okay.
We were kind of in the box, like contained, doing our thing.
They didn't say a word to you guys.
No, it took quite a while. I remember our company commander, it's like, hey, everybody gather around. Is anybody from New York? Like, we had a guy, I'm from New York. He's like, can you please step aside? Like, come talk to us. And then, an hour or two later or whatever, they broke it. And then like, yeah, we think we just got attacked. We should probably get back to the barracks and like get ready to like go punch out. And I was in 2nd Ranger Battalion at the time, so we were not the first ones that went over to Afghanistan and jump on Objective Rhino. That was 3rd Ranger Battalion. But I found myself in Afghanistan into March, April of 2002. So I mean, right
there,
right after all that stuff. So, and yeah, that just kind of kicked it off, man. That was, and early on, we thought this thing would be wrapped up in maybe a year, after Tucker Gar, everything that happened, it was like, this thing's probably not going to last too long. So everybody's like, we got to go. We got to get over there.
Get there.
Yeah. We got to go to the show. I got to check that box in my life or my career or whatever. And of course, then it turned out to last for 20 years. Yeah. and we kicked up a few others along the way. So,
I got to be honest, man, I'm still tripping out. I've never talked to anybody that, if I asked them, like, where were you on, 9/11, like, they would know exactly where they were, what they were doing on that very moment, like when they clicked on the TV and they saw it happening, and you didn't know for 3 days.
Yeah. If I remember right, it's probably 2 or 3 days for sure.
What's that's weird to me. It's like you've been in a time warp, right? And you're coming into this thing. I just wonder what that feels like to, like, everybody else knows, and you're coming out of it and you're talking about stuff that you're asking questions that.
We got back to the like the cantonment area, where that's kind of like administrative.
Okay.
That Germany has a bunch of training areas for the U.S. Army. So like we're out in the field doing that stuff, and we get back to like the hard buildings, kind of barracks, some TVs and shit. And watching the footage of, that was on the news, because of course the news
is just playing
I think it played for like years straight, but watching the footage is like, oh shit. And of course we had some international guys with us and all that kind of stuff. And and everything changed. Like by the time we got back to that, it's like
things were already in motion.
There's cops everywhere. People with guns, they like locked down everything. Like some poor private with an unloaded gun out in front of the freaking PX. It's like, what are you doing? I don't think there's any terrorists running around here, but that's just how the mindset was. Everything was on lockdown.
Yep.
And if memory serves, we took commercial flights back from that trip, I think. It was either that one or very shortly after with all of our crap.
Stuff.
So, you're getting on the plane and there's like civilians and we're just still like in full kit, and it's like
they're freaking out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like everybody just relax, everyth's fine. We're just coming back from a thing, and we lost military air, and they, got seats on these flights.
Yeah, man. Wow. Okay, so you guys are there right away.
Yeah.
How was that? Because I know there's a lot of spinning up and going back to contracts and things. I mean, they need a lot of people. They needed them fast, and so they started doing contracts. All the branches start doing contracts to fast track people through. But I wonder, was the deployment schedule heavier for you guys up front?
Yeah.
Were you over there longer than most?
No, we were there shorter than everybody, but extremely rapidly.
Okay.
That it wasn't. It took probably 24 months for the larger command to figure out, like, hey, we think this thing's going to last a while. So we need to start doing an actual rotation, because the early days it was like, hey, we're going right now because there's this thing that we're going to do. And you'd be there for a month, 2 months, and then come home for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and then go right back.
Okay.
And, that happened a couple times in the early days. And then finally it was like, no, we're just going to park your asses here for 90 days, 120 days, and then just start rotating out the different units. Because it's, I racked up 13 trips in the 15 years I was in the Ranger Regiment.
13 trips to
Iraq and Afghanistan.
Got it.
Which sounds like a lot, but they were all 3 months, 4 months, something like that. Where the conventional military, those guys are like, oh, I have 3 deployments. Yeah, but those deployments were probably a year. Some of them were probably 18 months. So those guys are hard. Like we weren't that hard. Like we go, you do it hard for 90 days, and then go home, train for 6 months, go home. Yeah, so it's like a never-ending cycle, which was good, and it kept us fresh. You know what I mean? So we played with longer deployments, and then we're kind of analytical, and it's like, bad shit kind of seems to happen at the tail end because maybe dudes are getting a little complacent or whatever. So like, no, we're going to do these short, hard ones.
That's interesting.
And then have a 6-month training cycle. And it's just a rinse, lather, repeat.
Got it.
Yep.
So then you spend, the next really 15 years doing that.
Yep. Yeah. I had a couple of layovers. I think I did 5 trips, and I guess I mentioned I was an infantry guy, so I was a shooter, assaulter. I was a sniper for 2 years, and then I did take a 18-month break, if you want to call it that, and I was an instructor for one of our internal schools.
I was going to ask that.
We ran.
What was it?
Pre-Ranger. So everybody, before you go to Ranger school, you go to a 3-week course called Pre-Ranger, where we make sure you're good, teach you everything that you got to know to be successful in Ranger school.
Yep.
So I was a pre-Ranger instructor for the unit, and that was great. Like I learned a lot. That's probably about the time when I really started like figuring out that I love teaching. And
that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
This has to come up in here somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So you get this. Was this an opportunity? Was this something you asked for? Was it not an opportunity that turns into one?
Yeah, it was an opportunity. I never had a plan in the military. Like I never mapped out my career. I just kept saying yes to things.
Yeah.
And one of my mentors, like a guy that was like 2 or 3 ranks above me that I was in his element, he was an instructor there, and he called back and said, hey, I think you'd really be good at this job, and they were looking for guys. Sometimes hard to find guys that actually want to do that stuff, or can, just where they're at in their careers. Mm-hmm. So anyway, and I was, yeah, sure. That sounds fun, and I think it helped that I was a military brat. So I'm used to like moving around every 4 years,
okay.
And I'd been at the unit at that time for like 5 years. So I was like, yeah, shit, that sounds cool.
Okay.
Change the scenery, do something different. And I loved it. I love being a pre-ranger instructor, all those skills and techniques and just passing it on and seeing those kids be successful and all that stuff. So, I did get to like not deploy for 18 months, so I got to go home every night.
Yep.
And hang out with mama a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I went to 3rd Ranger Battalion and was a squad leader and a reconnaissance platoon sergeant there. So that was kind of cool. It was a different job. And
right back though.
Yeah, right into the fight. That's, in those days, a lot of dudes would take that break, and it's fine. It's not a gig on them, but they're like, I did it. I did 5-6 trips, whatever.
I'm good.
I checked the block. Like, I'm good. I want to do something else with my life. Like 100%, bro. And then other people were like, no, I'm here to get better because I want to go back. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go back and be better. So that I fell into that category for sure.
Gotcha.
So then I went back being operational for 5 more years with 3rd Ranger Battalion. And then again, took another little short break, and I ran our unit's breaching program. So all the explosive breaching and everything was my program. Got to spend a lot of money. That's explosive breaching.
It's not cheap, huh?
Is not cheap. Yeah, and it's not cheap because of the targetry. Blowings. You have to attack things like targets. And Type A fire doors and walls and houses and door. That stuff is expensive. So anyway, spent 20 months there, learned a lot, did a lot, and then got asked to go to Savannah, the 1st Ranger Battalion's in Savannah, Georgia, and take an assault platoon there, and did a couple of years there, and it was great. And then I actually got cancer, and so that got taken care of, no problem.
Wow.
No issues. In fact, you're a fitness guy, so I should probably tell this story.
How did that come up?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're going to love this.
I loved how you were just about to brush right past that.
Yeah,
Time the fuck out. Like, what is that?
Deadlifts saved my life.
Oh, so let's hear the story.
100%.
Yeah, let's hear this.
We had just gotten back from a deployment, and not outside the norm for dudes on deployment to come home like 10, 15 pounds heavier than when they left, because it's so fantastic to like eat, sleep a lot, lift, and then go out on target, do your job.
Yep.
And when we go out on target, you're gone for 3 hours, 4 hours, you go out at night, do the thing, back before the sun comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So you got some time there. So, and it's the sleep. Like, when dudes are home, you got families, you got stuff going on. I mean, we're still working out hard, but you're just not really recovering. But overseas, you can do that. So anyway, long story short, get back to Savannah. We're back in the gym and everything's. I was deadlifting. My fighting weight back then was like 200 pounds.
Okay.
And I missed it. I was like, oh man, that was PR's not happening today, and my fucking back hurts.
Yeah.
So I hobbled my ass over to the physical therapist and everything that we have in the facility, and he starts doing the thumbs and the lower back, and he's like, yep, you got some shit shifting around. You need to go get an X-ray, see what's going on there. So I did that afternoon, went in, like medical cares was at that time and still today is like primo, you know what I mean? So things get looked at and taken care of, like PDQ. So the next morning he calls me, say, hey, I got your results, come up and talk to me. And I walk in there and there's like, unit leadership and the chaplain and shit. It's like, is this fucking intervention or what? And they're like, yep, your back's broken in 2 places. Very common, like everybody's is. It's healed. It's stuff that happened a long time ago. Mm-hmm. That's probably why your back just kind of hurts sometimes. No issues there. But you have a giant tumor on your right kidney. And it's like, he's like,
shit.
I'm not an oncologist, but that ain't good. Yeah. So I was in surgery like maybe 2 days later, and they took it all, they got it, like no chemo, none of like that.
You got your kidney still?
Well, I have one left. So.
They took the whole thing.
Yeah. So, that stopped me from being operational, anymore after that. So they're like, what do you want to do? I only had like 4 years left in the military at that point. At least to be like retirement eligible at 20. I could have, I guess, I remember when I came out of surgery, and even before I went in, I was like, you're not fucking medically retiring me. Like, that's not going to happen.
Right.
I'm doing I'll do something.
Right,
right.
Yeah.
But they're like, don't worry about it. They're like, we're the guys that have to file that paperwork, and like, we won't file it. Yeah. So they're like, what do you want to do for the rest of your career? Because you're not going back overseas, So
was that hard? Or were you?
It was hard later, like at the time it was just, I was all wrapped up in it. It was like, shit, what can I do here to still get some kind of value out of this?
Yep.
I'm not, still want to be on the team.
Right. Of course. That's what I'm saying.
I
guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. The real, like, holy fuck, what the hell didn't happen until a couple of years later. But I looked around what my options were, and I ended up kind of, the Army has a program where they kind of give you some special training, and they send you to an embassy. So I volunteered for that, got accepted, and then ended up doing the last couple of years of my military career in Mexico City, working in the U.S. Embassy.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a good word to put on it, I guess. Interesting, not kinetic. Like, nope, didn't ever, didn't go kill any drug dealers, nothing like that. Worked in an office, real super boring job, but living was okay. You know what I mean? And I got to give some time back to my wife. That was kind of neat.
Okay.
And I got to practice being like a functioning civilian for 3 years. Before I actually got out. But I had to do I guess almost a year of training before I went, and that was up in DC. And the only reason that's relevant to you is because I got to do a lot of training stuff, because Northern Virginia is a great like enclave in America for just awesome training. I'm open enrollment industry stuff, if you want to call it that, but there's a lot of good training guys up there in Northern Virginia. So I palled around with all them and went to a bunch of classes and kind of taught some classes with some of those companies, and just had a great fucking time when I was there.
So good introduction to the business and how it operates and who the people are. And culture and whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was great. And then I wanted to retire in Savannah, because I'd been there with First Marine Battalion in Savannah, and me and my wife loved it. It's like, we're retiring here. So, and then, when I retired, a lot of dudes were like, so you're going to be, you're gonna come over to our side and, hang your shingle out and drive around the nation, teaching classes and duking it out on Instagram and like all that shit. And I was like, absolutely not.
No,
not at all. There's got to be a better way to do that. And I, thankfully found a great way to do it, which is working for, this company and being able to do this kind of work, but not having to like try to fill classes. I get to support everybody. Like,
it's a good place to be.
Yeah, I get to support all of my friends that do this at a really high level, and they're great at it. But I don't have to, try to fill classes or anything like that.
So this is some more questions. Was this? I think you said they were hiring, but was what you do for them the job position at the time, or has it evolved?
No, it wasn't a job position. I didn't create it, but they asked me to do it.
So tell me how this worked. Like, how does this go down? Yeah.
So I do education. Training is kind of a 4-letter word for a lot of government agencies and police departments, and I totally understand why. Mm-hmm. So I just call it education. But our product line, I'm sure a lot of companies feel this way, but our product line is very specifically designed for specific purposes. And it's great because we have We have good clients, kind of in the SOCOM community for the most part. And when they come to us and they say, hey, we need this pouch that is this big and it does this and it's for this reason. And okay, cool. No problem.
It solves a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
For a very specific individual in a very specific situation.
Yep. And then, we build it for them and then we build more and, put them up for sale.
Right. Hey, this works. It's proven itself out. Like these, gotcha.
But I think historically, and maybe still to this day, we kind of maybe don't do a great job of saying, hey, this is what this thing does really well. And this is what this thing does not do really well. Like it's not for this, like sticking round pegs in square holes.
Got it.
And we don't do very much, I guess I'd call it general purpose gear, which is definitely needed. A lot of general purpose endeavors out there with guns and tactics and things like that, load carriage.
Yep.
But our product line is typically very specific.
Okay.
So for those reasons, I was like, hey, I'm going to just go around and make sure that people are aware of those like specifics and how to employ it to its fullest capability and how not to employ it. If this is what they're looking for, this is the answer. If it's not what they're looking for, then I can get them help from one of the myriad of other companies that probably does build something,
gotcha.
For that. And that's a good place. Like I got to take the shave test every day. So, actually like 3 weeks on the job, one of our salespeople calls me up. He's like, hey, I got a large municipal SWAT team on the line for one of our plate carriers.
Okay.
Like, can you help me out? Like you speak the language and, you can talk to these guys and figure this out with them. And so, yeah, absolutely, man. That's like what I'm here for. And I wasn't able to fly out to them. So it's like a VTC. It was during COVID, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
They're like, hey, this is what we're thinking. And this is what it is. I was like, yeah, like what you guys do mostly, dope raids and warrants and stuff like that. And like, yeah, that's what we do. It's like, yeah, this is not for you.
Product.
Yeah, this is not for you, homie. Like this thing is a very purpose-built, plate carrier for hostage rescue. Like there's some design stuff about it that's like probably not what you want to wear if you're doing warrants and things like that.
Can you give me an example? Because I have no idea what the difference would be. Like you're talking to a guy.
Yeah, okay.
I understand certain things, but like that, what do you mean? How can you explain that?
Okay. The big difference is,
and sorry before you start getting into it, and explain how they wound up in that situation.
Well, I don't know that part.
Okay.
I heard, I got brought in after they had already talked to somebody about this thing.
Got it.
I mean, to a lot of people out there, a plate carrier is a plate carrier. Like it holds plates and, maybe snaps on the side or something like that. And it's like, it is what it is. It's comfortable. I like the color. Good to go. And that's great. Ours was born out of, hey, when you're doing for the units that are tasked with hostage rescue, that changes what's called priority of life. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, the hostage is the priority. So doesn't mean we're not important, but we're not like the most important, And oh, by the way, we have to get as many people into that tight space as possible in the least amount of time. So anything and everything we can do to get this thing slimmed down. And slim, a lot of, in the tactical world, slim isn't so much the sides, it's the front. It's like, hey, I ideally I want all of my kit to be, the same width as my body. Of course, we can't get that, but we can get it as close. So like the cummerbund, for example, is one solid piece all the way around. There's no clips, there's no nothing, because all that stuff just starts adding girth.
Yep.
So it's like, nope, can't do that. We gotta make it completely one piece, basically from side to side in the front. Which comes with like, hey, it's kind of a pain in the ass to put on. You don't get to like good. If you have short arms, like your buddy's probably gonna have to help hook it up.
Okay.
Which is fine, because in that mission profile, like
there's other guys.
It's not gonna happen in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
like,
there's other guys and there's a prep time.
Yeah, exactly. Like we got our ready rooms and we're like, hey, you don't have a lot of time, but you do have you hooking up all your comms and everything. So, it's not something you're just going to like throw on in the back of a car and go, you know what I mean? So anyway, And then a real neat design requirement, which I love, was there's no gap between the front and the side plates. So when you wear it, I don't have one here, but when you wear it, the front plate and the side plate's not adjustable. It's sewn in right there so that when you wear it, they touch. Wow. So there's a seam there, but there's no like 2-inch gap or something. Mm-hmm. So, and if you've been to a bunch of classes and, you're in this work, well, you always hear like all the time, it's like, we live and die in the gaps. It's like, I agree, there's one, like right.
Why aren't we addressing this?
Right where you don't want to take a round, especially when you're going through a tight threshold and you're already, you're probably already bladed, and that space right there is no bueno. So, it's small little details like that. No soft armor, no quick release. Because in that mission profile, if you're a casualty, we don't care. Like, you're not going to get dealt with until we're done doing what we're doing, and then so there's some of those little things just aren't present for that piece of equipment because in that context they weren't important. The most important thing was form factor, slimness, things like that. So anyway, for all those reasons, it was like, this is not what you want to wear when you're serving a warrant. Because when you're serving a warrant, like, you have priority of life, not the bad guy. So we can put a little bit more emphasis back on your safety stuff and things like that. But
so thank you for that.
Just a good case study for.
Thank you for walking me through this. Yeah. Because like some of the stuff I may have known, the way you explain that makes hopefully a lot of sense to a lot of people. And going back to like your job is to make sure you get people into the right product, right? And that they're using it properly and whatever else. Yep.
So like another good case study is like BFG is all of our mag pouches are 10-speed mag pouches. So it's like, and the design requirement there was, if I got all of my stuff on, my magazines, flashlights, whatever your mission support gear is I want to have the ability when I use that item, that form factor goes away. So as the deeper I go into this structure doing, CQB, gunfighting, whatever.
It starts to flatten out.
You get smaller.
Yeah.
Like, the longer you're on mission, the smaller you get, which is a fantastic capability. However, it plays hell with like running relays on the flat ranges.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, because
it's annoying.
You can't jack your stuff.
Re-index it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, nope, it's out, it's gone. That thing just disappeared.
You got to really work to get it in there. Yeah. It's easy to get out, but it's not so easy to get back in.
Basically putting mags back in is like an administrative task. And it doesn't even happen when, you're in the fight, so to speak. So it's like, I just want to get smaller as we go. Mm-hmm. And the administrative part of rejacking your equipment, that's fine. That does happen, but it's not anything I need to do like right now. Yep. But when you're running relays on a range and, you're going to a good class and you guys are running drills and exercises, it's like, I kind of like these hard mag pouches because I can just, re-index and keep going. But, climbing ladders and going through windows and getting into tight spaces and things like that. Because back, again, going back to the genesis of like all this great technology we have today. When I was coming up, there was only 2 types of magazine pouches. Type number 1 was a full enclosure, full flap. Yeah, like, so I call that like 100% reliable tumble retention. So it's like, if I fall off this mountain, I'm still going to have all these mags. Or you had like, at the time, like Kydex race mag rigs, like, so it's like, hey,
with the shot cord holding them together kind of thing.
Not even like Blade Tech's like early, Kydex full, and an Eagle back then was making kind of little halfy, basically I think they took somebody else's shit and wrapped it in Cordura and was like good to go, which is totally cool. But they were great mag pouches, so that gave you like real fast access. But the damn things, you could never rely on them to actually be there. It's like if you trip and fall, it's like, oh, my mag's gone. It's like, whatever, take another one, jack it in there, and keep going. But so the requirement was, hey, we need both. We need 100% reliable tumble retention, and we need quick access. But we want it to disappear, because once that mag's gone, I don't want the empty mag pouch getting hung up on whatever. So it works really well for that. But like I said, it's probably not the greatest if you're spending all your time on a flat range running exercises and drills and things like that. So, that's the kind of things that I have to keep repeating to clients and customers and people just for educational purposes. You know what I mean?
I do know. I think I know exactly what you mean. I mean, you just did a really good job of explaining that. I guess when I'm looking at it, you're kind of part of the design process in that sense too, I would imagine, as you're finding out what new people's needs are, or you're trying. So it's education, but it's also being a consultant, an advisor of some like, this isn't the right product for you. Let's get you into the right product for you. And then tell me exactly what your needs are. Yep. We haven't run into that yet. So I assume you're going back and going, hey, these guys got this unique issue that I think we might be able to solve for maybe in this way, kind of thing. So
yeah, that happens quite a bit too.
I'm sure.
And I geeked out when I was active duty, when I was the master breacher. It's a headquarters job, and we have our R&D, so the guys that are looking for the newest guns and lasers and optics and uniforms and body armor and the explosives was part of that too. So by that time I had kind of been in the industry. So I've been to SHOT Show a bunch of times. So I was still a total gun geek, and training geek. So I always bugged those guys, and I kind of worked with them a lot. But during that time, I really understood the value of like requirements. So you're probably under the impression that these tier 1 units and stuff, they just like whatever they think they need, they just go get. And like nothing could be further from the truth. Like everything is like, all right, it like this Oura ring. It's like, all right, I think we need to get Oura rings for everybody. That's how it always starts. It's like, okay, well, what is the requirement? Like, well, we need to have the ability to, read everybody's heart rates at all times, so we can apply that to these things, and it's got to be able to do this. So, but everything has a very specific requirement that it's applied to. It's not just dudes screwing off. Like, hey, I saw this gun and guns and ammo. Like, let's buy 20 of them. Like, that's not at all how any of that happens. So I got very good at writing requirements because, of course, he's like, we need to be able to do this thing. Like, okay, talk to me about this thing. Like, what's the left limit and the right limit? What do we want it to do? And how do we really make sure that that's going to be value added, and it's going to be as durable as we need it and as light as we need it and all that kind of stuff. And I get to do that now to help organizations because all like, we need med kits. It's like, okay, but like, let's talk about this. Like, what are you doing with this med kit? Like, well, it's a med kit. Okay, there's a lot more to it than that if we peel this onion back. Like, are you part of a team? Yes. All right, is the med kit for you to work on yourself or you to work on somebody else? Or is everybody going to have it so that their buddies can use that one to work on them?
Yep.
Like these are all very different requirements. So they are worth exploring. And that's also why we make I think at last count, 9 different med kits.
I was just going to say, so I was actually having this conversation with Christina, just without how many SKUs actually exist. Like, why do you need 9?
Yeah.
Why do you need 9 med kits? Well, because of what you're talking about, right?
Yep.
Which makes it a little bit tough for the consumer to make the right decision for them.
Exactly.
And so they're going to go somewhere to get that information. And if it's not you giving it to them, then who's it going to be? It's often going to be the guy on the range who bought it, who's unhappy with it or and unhappy with it because he's got a different requirement.
Yep.
That he doesn't maybe even know
about. Yeah.
Right?
Round pegs, square holes.
Yeah.
And all
so
that
they're
stuff.
talking about it online, or there's a chat room, or there's fucking YouTube or Instagram or whatever. And we all know what happens there.
Yep.
Oftentimes.
Yep.
So that is to me, that would be an extraordinarily important job for a company like Blue Force Gear to have many people doing this and making sure you're getting in all the niches, all the gaps, right? To be able to make sure those are shored up about as best as you can.
Yeah, there's only one of me. But thankfully I do have some help. Like I've been able to collect up a lot of industry professionals that are like-minded, and when I can't cover down on some event or something, then there's a couple more guys in my crew and women that are fantastic at doing this. But yeah, I'm not big on social media.
Yeah.
I can't figure out how to leverage it for anything good. There's people that can, and have really leveraged it. I personally haven't been able to do it. So I don't. I just try to get in front of the right people to have that conversation, which is why in the industry, I don't get to teach a lot of commercial classes anymore. And I love them. Like they're
You mean like
best.
open
enrollment?
stuff?
Yeah. Just open enrollment courses are amazing, and the people that come to them are amazing. And they're the best classes. I just don't get the opportunity to do it much anymore. But the ones that I do go to are typically like it's like round robin type events. Greenline has Night Ops Summit, Low Country Range Days coming up.
Right.
We had like Atlanta Range Day was here in Georgia a while back. There's a couple of them around the nation that are really well done.
Yeah, you got California Range Weekend that happens on the West Coast, and then you got the Achilles Tactics, Heels Tactics guys.
Yeah,
Rick Crawley does his events.
Ohio Range Day, right?
Yeah. So I think I love those things because I think they're great for everybody. I wish there were more people doing them.
Yep.
Obviously, that's a huge opportunity for you too.
And those are the ones I usually participate in because I can, and I love it because I get to support those people and organizations. Like, yeah, absolutely, I'll do a prone clinic.
You mean in
something.
terms of doing a class? Or something?
Yeah. It's like because it's product education. You know what I mean? And that makes it like good to go. And they're fantastic, and the FaceTime that I get with people and all the things that we did in this class of just kind of everybody educating each other.
Yeah.
When it happens at a larger scale, it's even better.
Yep.
And then on the gov side, we just go to a lot of like government, events. Like pretty much every state has like some sort of tactical officers association that they all get together. And so we go to those, and same thing. I used to do a lot of lectures, like actually at those things on kind of that topic, like gear requirements and how to write requirements and how to get your bosses to agree.
Sign off on stuff.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
Sign off on the cool gear.
Yep. Yeah. And it's easier than you think, just kind of have to
know the process.
It's like you guys already intuitively know this. I'm just helping you put words to it, that make sense and can be applied, things like that. But it's been fantastic. But the open enrollment, commercial stuff is great because and we'll segue off a little bit because I just want to get this out and make sure. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of my peers or the prior mill guys, especially the soft guys, and not the ones that are teaching in this industry, but maybe the guys that aren't, they're just doing normal jobs. And you hear that stigma of like, oh, it's fantasy band camp or whatever, like, dressing up like commandos and doing all that shit. Fuck them, because what they're not seeing or they don't understand, I guess, is that like in America, if you're an adult male, you got to have a thing, right? Like you're a husband, father, a professional at like whatever it is you do. And then there's probably something else. Like you fish, you fucking ride a Harley, like whatever. Yeah.
Drive cars.
Totally. You got a thing. And this thing, going to training classes of whatever particular flavor you're into, and getting in this community is a fantastic thing to be a part of because, worst case scenario, you're going to pick up a skill that you can use to like defend yourself, your family, your city, your country, whatever, and you're going to meet awesome people. Like that's like the worst thing that can happen, like the best thing is sky's the limit.
Yeah, we were doing a bit of that today.
Yeah.
Where else do you got to do this? Like,
So for Greenline Tactical, the sky's actually not the limit. Nor is the sunlight. You know what I mean? So,
true statement. Yeah.
But and the other part of that, where I try to educate some active duty guys or previous active duty guys on this kind of stuff because they see it on Instagram. They're like, what
they don't get it.
Yeah, they don't get it at all because they're like, I did this for a living. Like, I don't, those dudes aren't real or whatever that crap is. There has never been a better time in human history for the quality and type of equipment that we have because of you guys. You know, everybody thinks that like, oh, all this amazing gear is because SOCOM wants it. Like, I got news for you. The only reason SOCOM on all the units, you know, like all the spooky crap you hear about, they only have that stuff because civilians float the companies that do it. Like, there ain't enough business in the DoD to, like, you know, none of these companies have warehouses full of amazing high quality gear just waiting for the government to buy it. That is not how it happens. If the commercial market doesn't make it a thing, it won't be a thing for the military. You know, for what we're talking about here. Some other technologies, that's not the case. But for guns and optics and lasers and night vision and things like that, the commercial market pushes it to the point where it's like, oh man, we need that, you know, and because capitalism works, you know, and that's why all the gear in the 90s and prior was garbage.
Sucked.
Because there was no commercial market for it. You know, that like
then a couple people jumped into it.
Yeah.
Made a lot of freaking money doing it.
Yeah, because during the you know, the Great GWAT, there was money in it. You know, and I may be wrong on this, but you know, if memory serves, it's like, you know, you know, Surefire and like maybe Ops Inc. and some old, those kind of the OGs of suppressor companies. Pre them, like all suppressor technology was like dudes fucking off in their garage with a drill press. You know, like it wasn't until there was real money in the game. It's like, like man, let's go find like a fucking sound scientist. Is that even a thing? Like, yeah, it is a thing. You know, like people, but they would never work for you because they actually like, you know, can make money. So the GWAT, you know, from 2000 to now, we've done a 200-year leap in all things advancement. Yeah. Like weapons,
evolution,
gear, you know, all that stuff. So, and that's thanks to like civilians, you know, and all the good things that they do and all that. So I was trying to like put that out there. It's like, if you guys want good gear, you better stop motherfucking these like, you know, fantasy band camp, commando guys, you know. And also it's like, if the people that are here with us this weekend, you know, if they didn't have, you know, $50,000 in night vision and guns and time and everything, like they'd have a boat or a Harley or whatever. So it's like
they have something.
Same. You know what I mean? And this is a great community to be in, man.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. That was the way you walked through that was actually awesome. I haven't had somebody walk through it that way. From that perspective, for somebody who talks to so many people in so many different ways and so many different levels. I have talked to a few people that work for, hopefully this isn't insulting, I'll call it this, but in air quotes, gear companies, right? Somebody that's producing some product that anybody can have, right? Again, it's not, anybody can have this. And that's the thing that I think that's important for like companies to continue to do, like build something for like anybody can have. Like obviously we talk about technology and stuff that might not be the case. And in doing that, I mean, all the R&D basically happens right there in front of you on somebody else's dime. Like, and one of the things they're going to tell you is they're going to tell you whether it works or not. Yeah. Right? Yep. Real fast. And they're going to market it for you too. Yeah. Like, which is the crazy thing, go back to Instagram and whatever else. So it's like, just don't fuck this up. Like, keep your finger on the pulse of the people that are buying your stuff, take their feedback, put people in the field to talk to them about it, and then give them the things that they need, but also give them the things that they want. And I think sometimes that gets lost where people are like, oh, we think we know what they need. And they make some shit that nobody wants. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then they say it's great, right? When it really isn't. And it's not really solving a problem.
Yeah, it's just different.
It's just different, right?
Which is fine.
But it isn't. I mean, it's still pretty much the same. And everybody's looking, and then they get butthurt, like when a consumer goes, dude, you've done nothing. You haven't provided me anything new. This is dumb. This is the same shit this other dude did like 10 years ago. This is still. And then they're pissed at him, and then that stuff starts to come up like, oh, this is just fucking, he's doing band camp.
It's real strange, man. Like looking at this problem set, like I really do appreciate, because this happened. Like we get clients, commercial customers. Like we get a couple of weather vanes blown in the same direction. You know, like there's wind blowing here, and they're like, hey, and they're literally like, this thing from this company, can you guys make it better? And our answer is no. Like we're not taking anybody else's thing and just, shaving some weight off it or whatever. That's not what we do. If it's not a true innovative like design for something specific, we're not doing it because there's lots of other companies that do that. If you want to insert company chest rig but different, tell them to make it different. And that's really not our thing. That unfortunately is some people's thing.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah. But that's for them to duke it out. And on that point, and I was like Henry Ford's famous quote, after he built a car, and I think he said something along the lines of like, if I'd have asked everybody what they wanted, they would have told me a faster horse, because and in this industry like it is, and I've been in it now for 20 plus years. You do see these like fads and trends and things like that, and they come and they go, and it's all good. It keeps the cycle going and keeps everybody active, for lack of a better term. And it's not bad, but the stuff that's still around and still going hard, and not just gear either, but just training trends, educational things like how I used to think all the times, like how many fucking articles do we need about, this topic or whatever. And it's just me being short-sighted of like, well, every year there's new people coming into this that maybe don't want to read a magazine that was printed in 1997, so yes, it's the same topic, but it just keeps getting redone. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes the train can definitely run off the tracks sometimes, and you're kind of new to all this stuff, right? So yeah.
I like kind of an infant. It's been a couple of years where I've kind of dove deep, but I still feel like I was out there today, like seeing and learning and hearing things that I had like never seen or heard or learned before. And what you were saying there about people need to hear it. Some people have heard it already 10 times. They just haven't heard it in a way that's resonated with them. And
fair.
And that's the thing that I've struggled with. I think going back to having to repeat yourself, and also recognizing like the reasons why you have to. And what you said there was just because there's new people coming in. Mm-hmm. And those people are getting their messaging from somewhere. But there's also people that have been hearing something one way for a very long time, and that there's a lot of noise, and your message just hasn't cut through yet, maybe, in the way that you're doing it. So like on the on the podcast side of things, on the other side of the house here is the fitness side of things. And we do, when we drop those podcasts, a lot of the times, I have to look back and go, man, I feel like we already covered this topic, or we talk about this a lot. But every time we do, like, it generates these new questions or new responses. And yes, you have to repeat yourself.
Yeah.
But you have to not think like that. You have to think like, who is your audience, and where are they coming into this? Yeah. And if you're truly trying to, provide what BFG is trying to provide, then you're going to be doing that a lot. And it just makes sense to do it.
Yep.
And there'll never be a time where you shouldn't be doing that. But people get bored real freaking easy, and they get, I don't know, I feel like the attention spans are very, very short, and they need to have something new and flashy, in front of them at the end of the day. They want the new stuff. And I'm all about, look, if you want the new stuff, go get the new stuff. But they haven't really spent enough time in a place long enough for me to really know like what they need or want.
Yeah, it's like, hey, dude, it's a 16-week training cycle. Don't get pissed off at week 2 and switch to something else.
That's program hop, right? Yep. We talk about that all the time. Like, you haven't done this long enough to know if it even works for you or not. Yep. Like you haven't done anything long enough to know what does or doesn't work. Like, if you just stay consistent, in this thing, it would be better. You get me on a soapbox on a whole other topic, but yeah. So the way you're delivering the information. This is why, like, Don's very, is actually like, man, you got to interview this guy. You got to. I'm like, okay, let's get him in the seat. So I'm just kind of going down this path of like education and an educator for a company. Who else is doing this out there that's doing it well? Can you compliment somebody? Like, are there other companies that are doing this really well that you think are like, hey, they're really strong at this?
Yes.
In this industry.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely Aimpoint. Like my counterpart at Aimpoint, Buck, is amazing. And again, like myself, unfortunately, he doesn't do a lot of commercial stuff because it's mostly government clients and things like that. As far as like, running red dots and what they actually do and how to employ them and, all that kind of stuff, just absolutely incredible guy. Besides that, it's, guys like Don and Duffy and, if I'm not saying your name, I apologize. There's a dozen of them out there, and they do the same thing. I'm just a little bit more focused on our product line.
Okay.
And maybe it makes it easier for me, because they have to answer questions intelligently on lots of other people's stuff, and they have to put their hands on it and use it, because they never, I don't fucking know. I've never used it. That's, not a place they want to be in. So, but yeah, I think the industry, because of our current situation, we'll go big on social media outlets or commercials or print magazine ads, and I guess it just goes back to like, fishing lures aren't actually designed to like catch fish. They're designed to catch fishermen, and that's like our marketing team is good. They're marketing people, and it's not evil. We're trying to solve the same problem like differently. So sometimes we butt heads.
I'm sure.
Yeah. But the problem is I come from a long format environment. In the old days when the first online presence of this community that you're a part of, when I got into that, like the internet started up, very shortly there was a forum called, I think, Cop Talk, and it was clunky and
it sucked.
Yeah,
probably.
But these were all people that would generate 20 paragraphs on like a topic, and then somebody would answer back with like 5 paragraphs.
The long form conversation.
Yeah,
on the internet was happening that way. There wasn't a 15-second soundbite that with 2 lines of text comments like a Twitter or Instagram or whatever.
Exactly, and I'm that guy. Like I still occasionally, if you're on like Light Fighter or PNS or some of those forums, like occasionally, like hey, I have a thought, and 700 words later, I finally finish it, and I kind of feel like, hey, if you're gonna read that whole thing, and actually, if you're the type of person that's even kind of in this for that, like I really want to like understand this a little better, then by all means, like type out your 2-paragraph reply or whatever. Like, I think this topic, or a lot of things, merit that. And Facebook and Instagram is just not a place for that.
Agreed, 100%.
It's just not.
That's why I started the podcast.
I haven't figured out how to make it work like that for me. And there's a whole weird component to it too. And this is just my thoughts on it, is pre-social media. And you're probably a pretty good example, right? So pre-social media, you're an adult male and you're like, you know what? I should probably like buy a gun for whatever reason.
Right.
Like I want to get into it or I need it or any of the above. So you do. You're like, go to the gun store. Fucking have no idea.
Right, just guns all over the wall. I like that one.
Exactly. Like, or you ask the people.
You ask the guy behind.
What should I buy? This is what I'm trying to do. At least, yeah. I'm sure you have all the horror stories about how that goes.
All of them.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of them.
But anyway, so you wind up with this gun and you're like, what the fuck do I do with this thing? And it took work, took effort pre-social media to be like, what do I do with this? Like, who do I go to? How does this happen? How do I, if you weren't a cop or you weren't in the military, you weren't standing on ranges with guys that were. Like, this is a pretty new thing.
Yeah, very.
So it took a lot of effort. I mean, there was places, Thunder Ranch was going, Gunsight was going. There's probably 2 or 3 more, but there wasn't much. Mm-hmm. So eventually, if you put in your due diligence and research, you'd wind up at one of those places. And then you learn. And then you get exposed to some stuff. And then you go change your gear. You change your gun. You come back. But what I'm saying is, to get the dopamine hit of like, I'm doing it, took a lot of buy-in on your part.
Mm-hmm. Commitment.
Yeah, exactly. And all that resulted in that like dopamine hit. You felt good. Like, I went to this class.
You earned it.
I earned it. Fucking A, right?
Yep.
And it kind of seems like now, if you're the type of person that is just looking for that dopamine hit,
instant gratification,
you buy a gun and put like red anodized parts and shit on it, and you put a picture of it on Instagram.
And you get the acknowledgement.
You get the hit.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take no effort. And that's, maybe why there's only 12 people here instead of 25 people here, because it's thankfully still in America, there is a lot of people that like will earn it and go out and do the work. And a year later, 2 years later, they have a whole different outlook on life and things like that because of this community that they became a part of and the classes that they went to and the martial skills that they learned along the way, and the mindset that they might pick up. They might start looking at things a little differently because the work that they did. But you don't have to do any of that work to get a dopamine hit. You just have to like talk shit on Instagram and
you'll get attention.
You'll get attention and all that kind of stuff. So that it's not evil. I'm not like saying nobody should be on Instagram,
I didn't hear that at all.
But it's just it's been interesting to observe that over the last like 20 plus years of trying kind of being involved in this stuff and meeting stuff. Because even when I was active duty, because I worked at Gunsight, I knew that stuff existed. So I kind of kept my finger on it. Every time I had a chance to go on leave, I was going to people's classes that were kind of starting up at that time and meeting industry people, going to SHOT Show on my own dime when I wasn't deployed.
Yep.
So I knew it existed. So I've kind of been a part of it for a minute.
I think so. The commitment thing, that's a big one for me in a lot of different ways. But I think I was having this conversation with you. Maybe it was earlier. I think it was earlier today. Kind of circle time that we had there for a minute. But I was comparing this industry to the fitness industry from the social media side of things.
Yeah.
And maybe what I said or didn't say then is this industry, again, air quotes, whatever that means. There's a lot of things in there. Is like 10 or 15 years behind the fitness industry. Like it just hasn't quite got there yet. So the fitness industry has been marinating forever, right? And there was there was a huge push. Let's go back to like the time we were talking about, like in the 90s, it was all bodybuilding, right?
Yeah.
Magazines and then, then the
Arnold Classic.
Yeah. There was all this. But it was, in order to get the information, you had to read. And what did you read? You were reading like Muscle
Fitness.
Muscle Fiction.
Yeah.
Right? or then there were a few other ones that came out. They're like, wow, people it's doing a really good job. And then, you can get advertising money about your supplements and everything to, these supplement companies will pay us tons of money to put their ads in this thing.
You'll get into GNC.
It is no different.
Yeah.
It is no different. Then of course there's always the like, this guy knows better, than the other guy, and this guy's mad at this guy for some reason or whatever else, and then they duke it out on the stage at the end of the year or whatever in this bodybuilding contest. But the fitness industry like grew very rapidly, very fast, including like personal training. It was like one of the fastest growing jobs in the United States in like I think it was either 98 or 99. Like it was just wild. It was going like gangbusters. And so then people were jumping on board with, well, if everybody wants to be a personal trainer, then let's make a certification, company that certifies these people. And here's all the reasons why we're better than the other guy or whatever else.
You get a whole lot of different certifications.
And the reality is that like these people that were doing this were doing that. They were going through these certifications for a very specific reason, whatever that was for them, because they wanted to make money, because they wanted to help people, because they wanted to wear the cool shirt. They wanted to talk to women at the gym and not seem like a creep when you really were. You were just wearing a personal training shirt, whatever the thing was. And so again, like these companies came out and said, well, we'll do this. Like we can do this. It grew very, very fast.
Yeah.
And what you just described is the same thing that's happening. And so now what I think along the way, the social media thing came. Right. We didn't have that in the fitness industry at the time. It still exists now, or it exists now, obviously. And going back to I'm trying to find good in it. Like there's a lot of good like in it. It's just, you have to know where to go. So if I'm a new person coming in, going back to the commitment to having to find it, even if you are committed, you have to search and put in time and also know how to navigate it in a different kind of way, because at least before you could pick up and read a magazine article or whatever it was. And even if half of it was true, right?
Yeah.
there was still good content in there, and I walked away with something that I could go back to. But now there's so much noise and so much distraction. It's so hard for people to remember what they heard or take what they heard and apply it because there's something new being tossed at them. And I guess I say all of that to say what you're doing, I feel like there's a massive miss by so many companies, right? To not having educators that can go long form and going out and put in there. They're not even putting money into this.
Yep.
They're throwing their money at influencers, right? To advertise their product with no education behind it at all. There's no sales process. There's no lead generation. There's no, is this what I'm doing with this guy, giving him whatever it is, whether it's guns or gear or whatever else. And he puts it up on it. He wears it in, to his classes or in his Instagram videos or whatever. Like, how is all of that being perceived by the consumer, and how are they making their decisions? Well, they're making their decisions based on the cool guy doing the cool stuff with your gear on.
Fishing lure.
That's it. That's it. I feel like there's so much room here for improvement, and like, why aren't more companies doing that? So like you mentioned Aimpoint.
Yeah, TNVC also, I would be remiss, like Joe Halloran and his crew of TNVC is fantastic. Like, and TNVC does make products, but they also sell a lot of night vision, and they're fantastic educators with almost zero glitz and glam, and they're just doing it for real.
I feel for people that want to be involved in this industry and like want to put out Instagram stuff or whatever that case is, like they love the social media thing and all that. Like, I feel like this is a thing that people should be pursuing, and that there's room for this somehow. I mean, you're a prime example. I mean, you're doing it.
And it used to be before the explosion, right? I'm probably wrong here, but let's just say there was. I could count them on both of my hands, the amount of guys, and they were, to my knowledge, all guys that were going around the nation teaching these types of classes. I
just had this conversation the other day with Mike Pannone.
Yeah, and they were the OGs that like started this stuff, and I knew a lot of them. I worked with quite a few of them, either as a student going to their classes or helping them on the range or whatever. And the mentality, which I would like to always maintain this myself, of like, hey, this is the topic that I teach. This is why I teach it. But whatever context. I was a 35-year SWAT cop in LA or whatever. Like here, but it's very clear. Like, and the reasons why I think what I think is because of this. This is what is produced. If you don't agree with that, you're more than welcome to. I don't care. It is what it is. And you should definitely go to these other guys too, and you should take it all in.
What they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we're not going to do is like, sling shit at somebody else, because the scale of like, and I learned this in my current job, working with a lot of law enforcement. And I'm thankful to have like law enforcement mentors that help me navigate this kind of stuff. Is especially with the fighting between soft guys and mill guys, or soft guys and law enforcement guys on certain topics, is because I guess they just can't figure this out. They're starting at opposite ends of the spectrum, and because everybody has this like movie in their head of like how
it's supposed to go,
how this is supposed to go, and why, right? And on our side of the house, like, you're always the attacker. You're always in control. Like you're I'm the fucking predator, and you're the prey. And how are we gonna manage this? And from what I can tell, anyway, I'm certainly not an expert. Just observational study I've been running in my head for a couple of years now. On the other side, their movie is always like, no, we're behind the power curve. Like we don't get to be the fucking predator. You know what I mean? We have to react to what
what's happening.
Yeah, it's just you're on different ends of the spectrum. So like things kind of, little topics like go way off the rails over,
what do you mean?
How do you tack load a pistol or whatever the fuck? It is just strange that, like, I really go to great lengths to not major in the minors.
Oh man, I love that saying. Yeah.
And I really like to deal with objective truth, like shit that just can't be argued.
It's measurable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, like I know some of your viewers maybe are new people too. So, maybe a good case study for that is like fucking managing a trigger on a pistol, or a rifle, but we typically get in pistols and smash it. If you're pinning it, it's too fucking slow and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, that's probably all right, but the other way to look at the problem set is like, with a new shooter or whatever, it's like, hey, if I'm only moving it 1 millimeter versus 12, I'm imparting less movement into the gun. End of sentence, target destroyed. Like, it's objective truth. You can't argue it, So
somebody will find a way.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and they do. But when they find the way, the movie in their head is like, yeah, but that's, eventually that's going to be bad. Like, I agree, but right now it's not. It's a building block, and we're gonna make sure that block is carved correctly and it fits and it's in place, and then we can start, tacking on more. But arbitrarily, smashing triggers because you're shooting too slow maybe is not like the whole story or whole answer. Or I really like to filter out all of the fucking bullshit and just get it to something that's like, objectively speaking, that is correct or not correct because of X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Like the principles of things and it's like, and that's why I don't like the whole art, gun stuff, and art's subjective. We could argue like, you're like, I'm an AC/DC fan. I'm like, I'm a Metallica fan. Fuck you. Like, right. We're better. Like, there's no way to prove that, right? There's zero objective truth to like a band being better than another band. But thankfully in our world, there are some things that we can apply that to. So I'm like, let's apply it to them and then move out from there.
It's a math problem.
Yeah. But if you want to not believe any of that, like, go right ahead. It's America. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think a lot of people get caught up too. It's you go back to the experience and the measuring what works and what doesn't work. There's like an extrapolation of something that worked in a particular situation. Oh, yeah. Now you're finishing the story somehow, or you're filling in the gaps, on the story with some other stuff that you heard, which kind of sounds right, but if you stopped and did what you just said, like, you can't really do that because every situation is different. The other part of this, I think that the struggle that I see having or people having with it is obviously gunfights don't happen every day, all day. Where people, by good people that are trained, that get to see what's, what did work, what didn't work, in whatever context and whatever fantasy concoction, has come up in their head or whatever. So they're constantly, there's this ongoing debate or conversation about how it should be done, when you do these things. And we're trying to create something that solves a very particular problem. And we're presenting it that way and then saying this is the way. Yeah, it's like, maybe it is for that problem, but if you just did, if this enters the picture, and there's a billion things that can enter that picture, then that's what I don't get, that where people don't get now. Like, how does this, what are you watching right now, this guy do this problem solve, what is that problem? Yeah. Like, where did that come from? Was that his problem, his experience in that thing? And where have you seen that repeated? And I can't believe that more people can't look at this stuff objectively, because I think it's a good place to be objective, right? And just go, okay, well, there's some really good parts about that, but this part of it is problematic for me. But that doesn't mean all of the things that he said are bullshit. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Or that he's an asshole. Like, that's another part, like, because it goes there pretty fast. I think you can have some conversations like that. I think you need to take care in how you present it, but you also have to take care in how you hear it and perceive it. I don't know. I might be rambling there, but scale is a really interesting thing. So, like, in the military, where I was in the military, pre-war, and then the war, and then more war, but we got to do a lot of things in a very condensed amount of time. We gathered a lot of data, and I really appreciate, like,
data analysis at scale. And the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of what you may read or run into when it comes to gun handling, gun fighting, people's experiences, that's all great. But like, I don't need to train for something specific because one time this one thing happened.
That's my point.
Yeah, it's like, hey, like when we see it 50 times over the course of
let's have a
500 operations, let's have a conversation and let's analyze it and let's look at it and then bring it back to like some sort of education or training methodology. But
I think that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. But, we can't develop tactics, if you want to call it that, based on like this one time this one thing happened. And unfortunately, like with our law enforcement brothers and sisters, that is huge because fucking lawyers, that's the only reason lawyers exist is because this one time one thing
liability
happened. Yeah. It's like, holy shit, you know. But it's the same thing with, not uncommon to hear from somebody that had an experience that changed their entire outlook and they like completely ran down that rabbit hole because, and sometimes that's very appropriate, but a lot of times I would submit it's probably not, I don't teach tactics and that's probably sounds a little strange.
Oh, doesn't sound strange to me at all.
Well, because I feel like I've defined it and I like to fuck, when I was giving lectures, I'd fuck with everybody. Be like, I don't teach tactics because none of you people can tell me what a tactic is because I'm a words guy. Like
they matter.
If we're not speaking the same language, we can't have a conversation. What we can have is an argument, but we can't have like a real conversation. And so that's when I pick on it. Like, you tell me what a tactic is. I always get the same answer. It's like, it's like how we do shit. And I'm like, okay. So I would submit that like a technique is the objective, most efficient way to execute something, whatever. Like, here is the objectively most efficient way to do a mag change, And what I mean by that is like, the environment is what it is. And it's the fastest and that, whatever. Like, yep, I agree. That is the best technique. And I just carried that logic. I was like, okay, so a tactic is a technique that's applied to a circumstance.
In practice.
Yeah. But the problem is, that's unteachable. Like I can't
redo that.
I can't give you every fucking circumstance in the world that you could possibly change a mag in. So what I can do though is just teach you a technique that's objectively like the most efficient way to do it. And yeah, we can start applying that and create some tactics. So like a good one maybe is, and I found this out. I get to do some technical force on force stuff sometimes, and the changing mags in front of your face is like the old I got it, like sun's out, I can see it, and I can apparently you can maintain some essay on what's going on out there, that kind of stuff. And what I've found over time is like that works amazing. Like when the sun's out
or the lights are on,
and your brain's not processing anything because you're staring at a fucking target with holes in it.
Right.
Your brain's already
7 yards away.
Yeah, and
you've same target you've been staring at for
all
the last
day.
3 hours.
Yeah, so zero bandwidth, right? And doing some exercises with law enforcement and civilians where it's like, okay, man, like I got a box and this is what's going to happen. Real simple. Start with slide lock pistol, hand on the mag. I'm going to pull out this Sims pistol and I'm going to shoot you with it. No trick fuck. I'm giving you the answer to the test here, right? All you got to do is put that mag in the gun, hit the slide lock, get it out, put one right here, And the amount of people that just can't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm a geek, like full disclosure, I have 9 college credits, all right? But and it's the only 9 I'm ever going to get. And all that happened after I retired from the Army, so, but I watch a lot of YouTube and TED Talks and I kind of geek out on this stuff. And I'm fortunate enough to know some people that are in the like cognitive field and I get to ask them questions and they get to attempt to explain it to somebody like myself. But bottom line is like, when you're actually processing visual information, your eyes are like, holy shit, look at that. Your brain's, processing stuff, like really processing stuff. It can't stop doing that. And I've had people, students or whatever that are going through this that are like USPSA grandmasters. It's like they haven't missed a reload like in 10 years, or whatever. It's like unfathomable. And they're like, I cannot get tab A into slot B, like right in front of my face.
Right.
Like, why is that? It's like, because
there's other stuff going on.
Well, that's the question. Why is that? So we can start working there. I like to say that I really enjoy doing weapons employment classes, which is very different than shooting classes. It's like, how do we
choose? What is this? Choosing the right tool for the job?
No. Like, shooting the gun is a mechanical, or I should say, a physiological like skill.
Yeah,
right. Got it. I can. And I'm literally just talking about the marksmanship piece. I can put an optic or a set of sights where I want them and process a trigger, and I can do that. Maybe I can even move it. I got all that stuff down. That's step one for sure. Like, we got to have that. And eventually on your path, and I don't know if you've done it yet, to this extent, you get to the point where you're like, okay, I can do all this stuff. Like, nothing I'm doing on this flat range impresses me. It's just like yawn, like whatever. Your sub-second fast drill or whatever it is like, okay, great, I'm super happy, awesome. Like, what do you do with it? Well, about that time is when it's like, okay, now we have to start looking at like, how do I employ this tool? And for civilians, there's two predominant ways you can start exploring that world. One of them is sport shooting. You know what I mean? Which is fantastic. Everybody should do it. They should do it a lot. The other thing you can do is, and you're gonna have to do some research, but the concept of open enrollment CQB classes is I don't know if it is now, but it used to be very controversial, for all these reasons.
I don't know if it's less controversial. I think it's talked about less. I think you hear a little bit less about it, only because it has been so controversial and people are just trying not to get caught up in that. And I think part of it is like, I do think they're a little bit more educated on it as a result of the controversial conversations that happen. So whether they're educated in like, I know enough to know that I don't know enough to get into this conversation, so I'm not gonna. Yeah. Or I've been through this thing a few times now, and maybe I had my mind made up about something before, but I've either taken classes, I've learned, or I've listened, or whatever else, and I've changed my mind about that. Yeah. But there are a lot of people still doing it, obviously.
Well, here's where I'm at with it.
But it's like, why?
Yeah, and that's the why is what we should talk about. We've just, unfortunately, I've seen, and this is my take on it. It's one way to look at it is like, I'm a civilian. I'm not part of a team. I don't do SWAT stuff. Like, this is fucking ridiculous, But what I find and what I've kind of like observed, having done a lot of open enrollment CQB stuff, not lately, but I have done a lot of it. And a light bulb came on. It's like, why are these like very accomplished sports shooters falling to pieces in this environment, right? And it's not so much the tactics of, room clearing or whatever. What do you do in a hallway? And what do you do with fucking?
It has nothing to do with that.
It doesn't. It's just, it has to do with like, hey, I have a tool. The tool only does one thing, which is like launch bullets or launch lights. So I guess two things if you got a light on your gun, It's all it does. But everything else I have to manage, problems I have to solve, whatever those problems are, it doesn't matter. The CQB environment just happens to be those problems are what they are, but you could replace them with other problems. But bottom line is, you got to process information. You have to decide what to do with it, and then you have to do that thing, right? And unfortunately, I can't say that. Like, unfortunately for civilians with guns, it's one of the few environments where you're going to get that effect where it's like, hey, I got to solve all these problems. And at some point, maybe the problem is using this tool. Maybe not, but you get to
find out.
Yeah, we get to merge those things. And there's some CCW instructors out there that are doing this. They're getting the same effect with like, scenario based, people classes doing like hardcore, civilian concealed carry stuff. Like I think it has the same effect of like going to a CQB class. Like at the end of the day, you're going to find out if you can use that tool in the closest like simulated field environment where you got to actually use that lump of shit 3 feet above your ass, your brain, and put it all together and maybe use the tool, maybe not. And if you do use it, how's that going to go?
Yep.
What's that going to look like as opposed to the results you get on the flat range?
Yep.
Why are those differences there? Like, I like that gap. That's where I like to work.
Yeah, people are trying to challenge themselves. They're trying to take the thing that they've been working on and do it different.
Yep.
Right? And gives them an opportunity to one of the things is just moving. Right? Moving around, in a place, being able to do the things that where you're not confined.
Yeah, somebody's has a whistle. It's like face down range.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's just different. Yeah. It is different. It's air conditioned too. Yep. A lot of the time.
Yeah, my facility is, thank God. Especially being in Savannah, Georgia.
But God.
But I would just, for some of your listeners that maybe are like, I'm a homeowner. I don't have a need to do CQB. And I could totally understand why they would think that, but it's like it's not about the CQB part. Like you're gonna learn some tactics, and that's all cool. But you're gonna that may be your first exposure to having to use that tool and this tool all like tied together simultaneously. And me personally, I don't get that at all with sports shooting. And I've done a lot of it. I do love it, but you just don't get that same effect, which is fine. That's not the effect they're looking for. Because obviously if you went to a, some sort of sporting shoot event and they're like, all right, go down that hallway, react to what you see. Some people would do it slow. Some people you couldn't objectively measure it. You know what I mean? So that's why it's like, nope, you're going to that one, and 3. And then, you can kind of think through it. That's all great. But it's just, you get a very different effect of, sports shooting would be very different. If you're like, well, what do the stages look like? I don't know. You'll find out when you get over there.
Right. Right. There's no planning. There's no nothing. It's just they open the curtain.
They open the curtain and
the timer goes off.
Yeah. And that would be difficult to measure, because of different variables that they couldn't control. So that the goal with sports shooting is to control all of the variables except for the ones we want to measure. Which is absolutely, I think all sports are like that, actually.
More or less.
Yeah. So it's not a dig on it. It's a sport. So they have to control all the variables except for the ones that they don't want to control because that's what they want to measure. But, it's a very different environment when all of that's gone, and we get a very different effect out of people. So that's all I'm saying is like have used that CQB environment to just raise that topic to the surface and then start working on it.
Yeah, because people can go away and they have stuff they can improve on.
Yeah, and like some of the best comments I've gotten were from people that I couldn't teach a damn thing on how to shoot a gun. They got that part down. But then they get exposed to that other world of like again, I call it like gun employment. And they kind of changed a little bit.
That's like, interesting.
They're like, hey, I'm kind of like done shooting fucking B8s at 25 yards. Like it didn't get me anything, and that's not a rule. It's just some people are like,
right.
I spent a lot of time on these skills that didn't give me shit. Like when I actually tried to employ the thing.
So why am I doing it?
Why am I doing it? And that's just them. It's like, well, bro, if that's your hobby, then do it. If that's your sport, then do it.
Right.
For sure. Don't confuse the two. But it's just very interesting because on the training and education point too, brother, like there's never been a time either where we have more data and videos of gunfights. Like, holy fuck, because of cell phones and, everybody yelling fucking world
body
star.
work cameras.
Yeah. All that. Cause, in the 90s and 2000s and we didn't have all that real footage of data. You know what I mean?
Just going off the storytelling.
Exactly. So everything was this one time, this one thing happened, But it's real cool because that scale, right? We can look at that really interesting. And in the sports world, I don't think this compares, or the fitness world, right? Because there's thousands of hours of footage of people that have zero formal training that win gunfights. So you can take that one of two ways. Like, number one is, fuck it, I guess we don't need to train.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to do what you're going to do. Like, just, whatever that is, you're probably going to be okay. Because look at all these videos of, somebody that bought a gun 25 years ago and put it in their purse and never looked at it and then pulled it out and shot a mugger or some such shit, right? There's lots of that out there. So you can say, well, I guess I don't really need to do this. It is what it is. Or the other way to look at it is like, no, if I'm going to be out here, I'm going to really shoot for the stars here. Like, I'm going to go way up here and I run into that a lot, brother, with, people that carry guns for a living and have carried guns for a living for a long time. And you put them in a simulated environment and it's like, bro, I get the same results out of somebody that's untrained. Mm-hmm. So what have we been doing?
Right.
For like,
how much more training do you need? You need to practice.
Or how are we training? And that's another big thing for me is the thought processes of like, well, when you're under psychological stress, you're going to freak the fuck out, so let's just go with that. It's like, no, we're not going with that. Okay. Because again, if that was objectively true, right, hovering a helicopter would be impossible.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, landing an F-18 on a carrier deck at night would be impossible. That's nothing but fine movements. They're very much under stress. In-flight emergencies. When engine, like Paul, when the engine fails and they're flying around, he's not like, fuck, and just crash the fucking helicopter. He's like, no, I have
immediately responds.
I go, step one, turn off the alarm bell. Like, got it. Something's wrong. Step two, collect yourself. Step three, whatever, go through hit the things, do the stuff. Like, a lot of other martial sciences are all about that, where it's like, no, the whole goal of like this martial science is to kill your alligator brain and control yourself under these set of circumstances. Mm-hmm. For some weird reason in the gunfighting world or training world, they've like, not collectively, but some people have like gone the other way, where they're like, oh man, when you're, under stress, this is all going to happen and you're going to be fucked. That's kind of, it's like, bro, like, let's think about this, and unfortunately that mindset has really dug hold in a lot of places. And right. It's sad, it's like, just if this was a room and, the guy on the left is 25-year, JSOC operator dude that's spent 1 million hours on a range, and dude on the right is you that like picked up a gun a couple of years ago, totally functional. When they both break the corner and they find stuff that they got to react to, sometimes I don't see a big difference, and again, that's very interesting to peel back that onion and be like, well, what have you done to produce that result? And what have you done to produce that result? And why are we seeing what we're seeing? So being a fitness guy, I'm sure like kind of the same thing. You're like doing these observational studies and being like, what is going on here? Why when we put A, B, and C together, we get this result? And when we put D, E, and F together, we get this result. So
yeah, and I think that part of, yes, and over time, we've collected a lot of data, and so we know, like, fundamentally, like, I guess from like a framework perspective, we know if we apply these principles and we do this consistently, we're going to get this result. Mm-hmm. But it's still based on the individual. Like
the biggest variable. Yeah.
And there's a lot of those, right? Yeah. Like, where are they coming into this, and what are they coming into this with? Outside of their goal, like of all that or any of that stuff, but specifically, like, what are all the things? What are all the things that could impact this? And that's an impossible thing to say that it will work this way every single time.
Yeah. Yep.
Because of what you just described, yep. Right? Or what we're talking about now. I know it is an interesting thing. You use the word like controversial. I think it's less controversial maybe now, and it's just more. I don't think there's controversy. You were mentioning it before. Like, words matter, and we're not having a discussion about this. We're having arguments, because we're using different words. And in some cases, those words might mean the same things to certain people, but they don't mean the same to whoever is having the argument or the discussion. And in other cases, I think the words have been used in a way that are probably out of touch with the way they should have been used. Used like it's not the right term there. You mentioned like tactics is one, right? You know, it was one of those things like, dude, we're not even on the same page yet. And so I've talked to a lot of very intelligent dudes just like yourself who I think they handle this kind of one of two ways. They see it coming, and you just mentioned the alligator brain and not losing it, you know, like not being able to separate things and understand certain things will work in the background, you know, and then also like, how do I approach this problem? Like, is this even a problem I'm going to approach? Is part of that question. But my point being, I can see already we are not going to be able to have a discussion about this. And this could be in all kinds of different arenas or whatever. But then there's those that are like, no, you're not getting what I'm saying. But you're not getting what I'm saying, so we need to go deeper on this. But it doesn't matter how deep you go, because there's already a restriction there that is not likely going to get overcome. So you're either trying to just wear the other dude out and get him to say that he's wrong, right? Or you at some point in that conversation, you might even find out you were wrong, right? And maybe not wrong about the actual thing you were talking about, but your judgment call on who this dude or who this person is and what they can actually bring to the table with regard to the conversation. So here I am running in circles, but my point of that is it is a little obnoxious, but I think it's getting better.
I hope so.
And it all comes back to this word education. You know, at the end, and part of the education is like the words matter, but like there's a discourse of like, what are we actually talking about here? Can we break this down? Where does it fit in? And all that is still very new, right? Because you talk about the law enforcement guys, the mill guys, and then the civilian guys coming in who are commercial people, you know, or a customer that are coming in. They're trying to pull all this stuff from all these different places.
Like amalgamate this big ball of shit.
That's where, that's where I came at it with the podcast. It's like, dude, I got things I want to learn, I want to understand. And so talking to people, I'm like, okay, well, this sounds very familiar to me than what I heard this other person say. I'm not looking at like what the exact words are, but conceptually, this is the same thing. And these guys aren't getting upset about this. They're having and they also know when to stop that conversation. Like we've talked about, because there's not enough. We don't know enough. Again, going back to all the variables, like we could go down the hypotheticals and the rabbit holes and the concocted ideas all day long. So I think it's getting a little bit better. But that's why I like sitting and talking with guys like you, because there's a way to present this information, and you've clearly done this. Like if we had to count the reps, right? How many reps do you get? And you were talking about like the OGs. The thing that made them really good at what they did is they made the commitment to doing the reps, and they did the reps.
And they changed, you know, like
they evolved
because technology changes, and you know, technology as far as this, you know, martial skill of like guns and employment, especially, is like, if you've ever heard like, you know, mission drives the gear, you know, and it's a great saying. It's not the whole picture, right? Because gear sometimes can allow us to do things that we used to not be able to do.
With night vision.
So that change, that like there's this constant like mission gear, because that's, you know, when things change that allow us to do things that we used to not be able to do, then things change.
Then things, it forces change.
And that's like, you know, really interesting to see that happen and how it happens and things like that. But the FUD or whatever that is still carrying whatever FUDs carry and all that kind of stuff, still a value add. And you know, the education piece is real fantastic, because I don't like, another reason I don't like to use the word training, right, is holistically speaking. Well, as a fitness guy, when you probably do like a 2-day, you know, clinic on whatever that topic was, you're like, I'm not training you people. Like the class you just went to, I hate to tell you this, bro, you're not trained.
No, I'm not trained.
Like,
but it's an experience.
Yeah, but you learned some stuff, right?
Learn a lot of things.
Education. It's like, I can't train anybody on anything in 2 days or 3 days or 5 days. Like, you give me 6 months, We can do some training.
You hope to be able to impart some knowledge that they can then take away and then use for
it's just educational, it adds to everything. And adult males, I think the science is pretty clear on this, right? Like if you know one thing, so you went to that guy's class, whoever that is. Mm-hmm. So you're like, you drink all that Kool-Aid and you're like, got it. Mm-hmm. And then you go to another guy's class, which is great. You should do that. But because you're an adult male, if you are, I'm not sure what it is for females, but millions of years of evolution, you will pick up all of the differences because you're hardwired to understand that differences are threats, and that's just that's how we're all wired. But I would challenge you is like, you need to pick up on all of the similarities, like find the similarities, and you're going to learn shit fast, because if you already know one thing, mm-hmm. like you've probably already done this and maybe even put words to it, but like everything you saw in your fitness education, training, professional development, when you hopped over to this genre of stuff and you start picking up all those similarities, you learn stuff pretty quick.
Yep.
But very easy to start picking out all the differences. Mm-hmm. And so if you are going down this road and you do the circuit and you're like, yeah, I did some commando stuff and I did, John Murphy's CCW stuff and I did this and I did that. And if you just pick out all the similarities between all of it, you're gonna get where you want to be and where you need to be, like real good, real quick and real efficiently, and you're going to have a good time doing it. But if you start just picking out all the differences between, like Mike Pannone says this and Chris Sizelove says this, and like, what the fuck, that, it's different and he's probably right and he's probably wrong or whatever, like all that bullshit.
Like this guy better than that guy.
Yeah. Not even speaking about like the whole personality thing, but just if you pick out all the differences between the gun handling or whatever, like you're not going to have a good time and you're probably not going to learn.
You're not going to get very much out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like just start finding all the similarities and you could be better off for it, So that's kind of what I've tried to do with weapons manipulations and techniques and things like that, is like, let's just try to get this down to the most base similarities between all of them, because all of them are right, but the degrees of right probably apply to like the movie that's running in that dude's head when the reason he's putting it out, or the reason he came up with the thing he did is right. It just, what's the biggest similarity with that and this other guy's technique or this other technique or whatever the case is. But like, I don't know, you guys probably argue ad nauseum about like the angle of the pelvis, at the bottom of
Stopped
the
doing that a long time ago.
Yeah.
Stopped doing that a long time ago. Yeah. Because there's a huge depends in mm-hmm. all of it, right? And that's what I'm picking up from this. Very wise words, man. Looking for, I saw a lot of patterns, mm-hmm. and that was based on my experience seeing and dealing with other patterns. And yes, what I didn't want to do was go in and make my mind up about something. I guess like it was particularly like you see something, whatever it is, whatever shooting thing, gear thing, or whatever, or an opinion. Let's just say it's just an opinion, and it may sound really good, and it may be coming across and being presented in a really intelligent, articulate kind of way, but I really try to be objective, and I learned that kind of a long time ago that, maybe there's something to this, maybe there isn't. I want to know more. Let me sit and watch this a little longer. You talked about like the long format type of thing. And I think that's the problem, is that there's not enough of the long format stuff. And so when you go and you take a 2-day class or whatever else, you think that's a long format. Dude, that's a minuscule amount of time and exposure to the thing, but it feels like it's massive, right? Because you don't have access to it in another way outside of the whatever, the YouTube video or the whatever else. That probably is what's driving this. But at the end of the day, this is what, like on the fitness industry, the experts generally agree on all the same stuff.
Yeah.
They do. On the basic foundations or fundamental stuff, they basically all agree. They may be presenting it a little bit differently, but there's things that you can go like that. You're not going to get an argument out of anybody about this particular thing.
Yep.
And if they are arguing about it, then I oftentimes that's being the objective part. That was the like, wait, but they're kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But they're so mad at one another. Like, I don't understand this. So my thing was like, I got to look behind the curtain here. Like, there's something else going on here. What am I missing? And I think if people kind of maybe took a step back and did that, like we said, well, aside from this little fireworks thing that I see here going on, like what are the similarities? And that was my journey, was to find that stuff out. Or what is my journey is like, where are these guys coming from on this thing? And I hear, I talk to a lot of people, and I consider myself extraordinarily fortunate, to be in like this situation right now where I can have that conversation. Because you guys that have been doing it and had all these reps, all this time, you really do agree on just about everything.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And that might be a very large blanket statement. Yeah. When I say everything, I would say on the important things.
Yeah. No, I would agree.
At least the way I understand
it. There's I don't know, 25 people off the top of my head. And I can't say guys anymore because there's some women out there doing a bang up job of this stuff too. They're exactly what you said. They present it differently. They apply it maybe a little differently for their specifics and things like that. But sometimes I think the fireworks is like business development shit, and that's a real thing. Another thing, a lot of those OGs that started this kind of industry, at least the training and education part for commercial stuff, open enrollment stuff, like the ones that I can remember anyway were all retired or double retired. They were pulling paychecks. Like they weren't like really trying to make a lot of money doing this.
They did because they love doing it.
Yeah, they one of them told me once, he's like, I do this because it needs to be done. When the war was starting and he had 30 years of gunfights under his belt and training and instructor stuff, and that's how I felt. He's like, this needs to be done, and it needs to be done right, because these young kids are about to go, but they bought a ticket to the show and they're going, and that like really hit me pretty hard. And there's thankfully today a lot of people that have that mentality, and then maybe unfortunately there's some that don't. And they're like, hey, I'm trying to fucking buy I got to make a car payment. So how do I whatever. And that just changes things a lot, like my mentor with all this stuff told me one time, he's like, I asked him a question like, how many students we got in this class or whatever. And he looked at me and he's like, you realize we don't have students, we have responsibilities. And I was like, whoa, which intuitively I kind of knew that, but when you put it in words like that, it kind of, it changed my like mental approach to this problem set. You know what I mean?
Man, that one's going to sit with me.
I hope so. It sat with me. It's been sitting with me for a long time.
Well, that's why I wanted to physically sit down with you and do this. Yeah. Man, Chris, I can't thank you enough, man. Yeah. I mean, this was, I don't know what I expected out of this, because all of our conversations have been fairly short. Because we're moving from one thing to the next. But here's the thing, going back to the guys and the veterans in this space that have been doing a long time. Don being one of those guys. Yeah. All the reps he's had in all the different places he's had them. And I was having this conversation with John earlier, and that was like, the dude really, really does care that much about people, taking care of people, putting the right people in the right places to help other people. And I feel super fortunate that I'm here and that I had the opportunity to sit down with you. So thank you so much for your time, man.
Dude, I'm glad you're doing this. Exploratory learning like drives me crazy. But we all have to do it in some form or fashion. Like if I woke up tomorrow and I'm like, I really want to get into, I don't know, being a pilot or something. And you go on the internet and you're just like, is this bullshit? Is this like, I don't fucking know.
There's no litmus. There's
So it's all exploratory learning, and you've done that in this new thing. Cause I'm also a physical fitness guy, as a career and all that, but I never got deep into that. But yeah, I still sometimes on my social media scrolls a lot of fitness stuff. But since I'm so backed off of it now, I'm like, Is this
Yeah,
bull?
where
Like,
is this coming
I don't
from?
even know. Is this, you know, so if I wanted to get back to like being some sort of SME, it'd be a bunch of like exploratory learning. Like, oh yeah, that was bullshit. I wasted my fucking time on that, but or money or whatever. But it does have to be done, and you're doing it and doing it quite well. You know, so
Thanks,
thank you, and hopefully, you know, showing other people how to do it without wasting, you know, time and money and effort into things, which is not always bad. It's not evil. It's not the worst thing you can do, but it can be counterproductive sometimes.
For sure.
So if you can eliminate a little bit of that counterproductiveness, then you're doing everybody a great service, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I do hope that it reaches people that way. And part of it is like people just need and want to be part of good conversations with other good people. And they might not always have that availability. So sometimes, or the capability to do that or the access to do that. Sometimes they just like being a fly on the wall and listening to the conversation. So like I said, I mean, there were so many nuggets that sort of came out of this one. And I know that'll reach people. I know that'll help people.
I hope so, man.
So you've done the same.
Yeah. And I hope going into 2025, I'll be in a position to do a lot more open enrollment stuff. I'm excited about having the opportunity. I've been wrapped up in a government project for like the last 18 months. It's really taken me away from all this stuff. And looks like that's kind of on the down slope, you know, not in a bad way. It's just, you know, my attention doesn't need to be there as much anymore. Yeah. So I'm hoping in 2025 to open up my aperture and start getting back out here to do this stuff.
Oh, I'm sure that's making a lot of people happy here and there right now.
Yeah. It's making me happy. So what I don't want to do is spend like, you know, 300 days on the road, but I'll find a happy medium in there somewhere.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will, man. But that is exciting to hear. And I'm glad you're doing it because more people need that. I mean, going back to the story you were just telling about your mentor, and because it needs to be done, man. Yeah. Like we need you out there. So keep doing that.
Thanks. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. And I'll see you again, I'm sure, man. If you're, you know, you can't swing a dead cat in this industry without running into people you know, man. And that's what makes it cool.
Yeah, I found that to be very, very true. Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. You have a safe trip back to California.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah. All right.